Okay, cool. So today is August 5th, 2021, and this is the SIG Arch Enhancements sub-project meeting. I'm Kirsten, I'm an owner, and we have two items on our agenda, which for whatever reason I cannot find right now. I don't know if there's only three of us, so I don't really think we need to share our screens. But we have two items on our agenda, and the first item is improvements to CAP CDL by Xander, and I'm gonna let him take it away and just give us a little bit of information about what he's been working on and maybe show us what he's been working on and kind of explain, what's going on with that. So take it away, Xander.
Sounds good. Looks like you might need to enable screen sharing and then I can get that going.
Sure, one second. You can't share? Okay, here we go. All participants.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, cool.
Oh, come on, Zoom. And make me open system preferences to enable it. I guess security is a good thing.
I like that Zoom tells you when people are recording though. That's one thing that other calls don't necessarily do, and I really like that they enabled that little feature now. Of course.
It wants me to quit and reopen, but I think that might be just for recording. Sharing works, okay. Right? You can see my screen?
There we go. Yeah,
okay.
I can see it.
Perfect. So I started, I just had some free time on my hands and I started playing around with CAP-CTL, and it kind of started as me thinking about some things that would be useful as I'm going to take on the enhancements lead role for the next release. If there was any part of this that could maybe help my workflow a little bit, I'm going to actually try to zoom in on my terminal because giant screen always makes sharing really an adventure. Okay, so
could you make it just a tad bigger? I'm gonna also see if I can.
Absolutely.
Oh wait, maybe I need to. Oh no, maybe I need to make myself bigger.
How's that?
What am I doing? Yeah, that's good.
Okay, perfect. So this is just my own little kind of fork of the project, just to test out some features and then solicit some feedback before I actually try to implement this in the actual CAP-CUTL code base in the enhancements repo. So the first thing I added was a get call. That's list. Just to try getting an individual cap rather than using the filter functionality that's in the existing one. And then this actually has a flag -O, which will kick it straight to a web browser and open that enhancement or that cap issue. Cool. So that's one call. And then the list that I have here is pretty similar to the existing filter functionality. You can just do list and filter by -M, which is milestone for 1.23, and it'll fetch. This one takes a little time to fetch those, and then we've got clickable links here to open those. And then the one main quality of life thing that I tried out, which I'm pretty happy with, is this login functionality. So if we do CAP-CTL login, what it's going to do is pop open this this GitHub auth window and spit out a code, and we can do 37C6 F5 B3. And then authorize. And then so now at the CLI level here, I am authenticated to GitHub with my user. And so as an enhancements maintainer from the CLI, I could change milestones and do that kind of stuff. And this avoids having to do the at the individual user level, the token generation and environment variable saving and all that kind of stuff. It uses GitHub's OAuth device flow.
Yeah, so you'd be able to use your spreadsheet or whatever you're going to use, and then just kind of, that's dope. That's actually like super dope. I like this because it's like just also immediately useful, like for people who would have who'd be like, hey, I actually want this. I wanna install this and use it. Like I really like that actually. That's really cool.
That's pretty much what I've been up to with it. I think I talked with
Jeremy
the URLs
too. I love the URLs. I love the URLs.
Yeah, that's been super useful. I discovered the like p-term Go library with this, which is just a super cool package that I hadn't used before. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Jeremy was really excited about the login functionality too. So like if there is appetite for it, I can certainly work on implementing that in the actual code base.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that one of the problems with some of the work, or some of the older CAP-CTL work, we felt like it was introducing some friction into sort of like the CAP process for people.
Sure.
And the cool part about this is I actually think it takes away some friction, you know? So it's like kind of zhuzhing it up a little bit. So it's like people who see the immediate benefit, like maybe the release team or, you know, like a SIG or anybody can be like, okay, cool. Like this is actually going to make my life a little bit easier. I actually see the utility. This takes away a couple barriers for me, you know, like.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Actually,
I think
that's
like
cool.
I was kind of using my own persona as I was working on it as like a release team member, essentially. Like what would I find useful in terms of like just like interfacing with CAPs? Like how could I make that easier?
Yeah.
And like, yeah, I don't want to at this point like change any of the like underlying process. Because that's like a lot more people that need to be involved in that decision. So this is just like, how can I make the interface to the existing process a little bit better?
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I think that's amazing, actually. I think I really like it. Because it's also like the one thing that I hate is when I'm trying to like open issue or get issues and then get the PRs, and it's like a lot of clicks, you know? And I'm always like losing my clicks, or I close a window and I'm like, wait, what was that I like? This is kind of dope. Like this is actually super dope.
Awesome. Yeah, I have it in my own private repo right now, and like going forward, I can either like open up that repo and continue to do development there, or I can do development like in the enhancements repo where the existing code base lives. Like, I didn't want to like step on anyone's toes, which is why I didn't just start opening PRs against that existing code base.
Yeah, cool. No, I mean, I think if you want to like demo it maybe for Jeremy or the other CAP-CTL people as well, or just kind of open it up and see what they think. I personally, I personally think that it's pretty awesome. So it's just like, I can see like immediate utility to it, which is kind of, it doesn't require like process changes. It's like an addition where it's like, hey, if you think this is valuable, go for it. If you don't, then it's fine, right? Like you don't have to use it. And I think that part is cool.
Yeah, maybe I'll just like open up my repo and then I can just like, you know, then it's a point that anyone can just download it and use it as they see fit. And
cool. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I have for the agenda. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, this guy who was here like deleted what I had put in the agenda for some reason. I'm a little bit confused about. I just wrote things into the agenda. I'm sorry. I'm just talking to myself at this point.
That's fine.
1 second. So in the agenda, I had put some stuff, and for some reason, somebody deleted it. So
interesting.
I'm trying to figure out.
Oh, is it under the SIG architecture Google group or?
No, the person who was in the call like deleted something, and now I'm trying to like figure out what I had written before because it's gone. Anyway, I guess I will just freestyle it. Yeah, so I mean, nobody else is here, but I guess the thing that I was, and I'm not sure if you're interested in this, and I'll just say it for posterity then if you're not interested. But I think like sometimes the enhancement subproject, like we take on a lot of stuff or we have a lot of ideas and they kind of just linger. And since we're like this next release closes out the year, and like the following release 124 would be the start of 2022, I thought it would be cool to like think more about like how do we want to go into 2022? Like what are some new things that we could kind of do for 2022 to start the year off? And one of the things that I was thinking would be good is to work on the process cap template, because a lot of people have been asking for it. And also like the whole kerfuffle with the cadence cap and whether or not that was done correctly and how we could sort of better improve that, I think would have like immediate value to the community, but it's also not something that I think would take a lot of effort, since it's kind of like what you're doing, where it's like, hey, like people are already using like the old cap template format and it's kind of a drag. Here we can offer them something else to use and also encourage people to start thinking about sort of memorializing their process caps in this other way. It's something that we've talked about, but I think that like the sort of immediacy of it is a little bit higher now. So that was something that I wanted to explore, and also get sort of like a draft template up and then get some feedback. And then maybe it's a little bit meta though, right? Because using a process cap would be a process change. And then you're like, well, would I use the process cap for the process for the process cap, or would I do it in some other way? And I kind of fell into a rabbit hole thinking about like, would I use the old cap template for the process cap, or would I use the new cap? Anyway.
Oh, yeah, you get to demo the new process cap template for the yeah, I think that's perfect. It's
yeah,
it's very a little head spinny, but it's great.
But yeah, and I was thinking about like a lot of the thing about process changes is about sort of, it's not just about what are you changing, it's really about letting people know and having that sort of community feedback, and also potentially saying, hey, well, we're not going to do it next time, we're telling you what we're going to do. Like one of the sort of canonical process caps for me is the API deprecation stuff, like the no perma betas, where that was announced like a year plus ago. And that's been something that I think was done really well. And you don't necessarily need that long, but just sort of thinking about how much time do you need and how should you, for especially like if it's just affecting your SIG, SIGs can do whatever they want when they want to. But if it's like something that really affects like multiple SIGs or the community at large, like how do we want to ensure that people are making things visible? How do we want to ensure that we have enough time? Because something that affects everybody would need more time than something that just affects one SIG. And I just thought that that would be something that would kind of, reduce a little bit of friction for the new year. And it probably, I don't know that it would be required, because I don't think that that goes in like the spirit of a process cap, but it's something that could be available to people in the new year. And then we could also like refine it, for the next release, probably the spring summer release after that, and have like this working template, which I think would be pretty cool. Another thing that I wanted to do was make sure that the repo permissions were good, because I don't know if you've noticed this, Sander, or you'll probably notice this soon. In the enhancements repo, milestone maintainers can edit things because they need to be able to edit the descriptions of issues. But that also means that they can manually merge, which is fine. I mean, it's not fine, but it's okay for keps, right? Because the SIG is the last word on the kep anyway. So regardless of what you merge, like if the SIG looks at it and is like, no, you did something wrong, like fix it, that you have that backstop. But for things like the kep template and kep CTO, I'm a little bit like, we should make sure that you can't like manually merge into those repos, just because, only like an enhancement subproject owner should really be able to merge manually, but nobody should be manually merging. Like we would need legitimate PRs. And we shouldn't have people accidentally or just being able to come along and manually merge just because they're a milestone maintainer. So just thinking about the sort of security of those repos, those like sort of more sub-project repos as opposed to like KEP repos. And then, and that seems like a pretty easy to do, but it's just been something that's like, you know, for once and for all, like, what do we want to do with this? And then the other thing that I was thinking about, and as a newer person to the enhancements repo, this is also something for feedback, would be, I think that we don't have a great like example for the KEPs. And I think that it's really hard to sometimes work with a template because the instructions are in the template. And I'm not sure that that's like the most user-friendly way to tell people what we want. And I think like exploring how we could better illustrate like what is expected in KEPs with instructions and potentially examples in a different format could be really helpful for people. Like, I don't know if that's a sample KEP. I don't know if that's like, you know, the tax forms where it's like, you have your form and it has like a brief instruction, but then you can go to like the bigger booklet that gives you all of the details for each of the fields, and kind of trying to answer questions that way, or maybe showing some really great forms of KEPs as well. Because I do think that that's like a sense of a point of friction where the instructions aren't necessarily clear. I'm not talking about like the fields of the KEP, but just the instructions, like what we ask for. Is it necessarily super clear? And also the format makes it a little hard to read like in the template, because you're trying to keep it brief because it's the template, but there might be a little bit more information that you could give. So that was just like 3 of the things I was thinking about that seem like really like bite-sized enough to be able to tackle before 2022, and also nice sort of ergonomic improvements to start 2022 with, because it's still a weird year and not like biting off more than you can chew kind of thing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think having examples directory specifically would be fantastic. You know, that's if I'm looking at like, it's different, but like if I'm looking at implement or using a library that I'm unfamiliar with, like the first place I usually stop is the examples directory.
Yeah.
So in addition to like having the template, if we just had a top level folder in the enhancements repo that was examples, and we pick like 4 KEPs that we think were really well done using the most current format, that might be especially helpful.
Yeah, like something like that, and like they could be potentially like annotated or something, but it's also like as the KEP template gets bigger, it's almost harder to see what's in the template, but then it's also harder to like really get an idea of what you're supposed to put in, because it's just like this, especially with the instructions, it becomes really long. And I think some of the instructions also haven't really been like audited in a while, you know? So it's like, I know what they mean. Like you might know what they mean if you look at a lot of KEPs, but I don't know that it's really like explicit. Like, and I think that maybe auditing those instructions also could be like really helpful. Because I know like I think it's for tests. I want to say for like graduation criteria. Like we pretty much want graduation criteria for alpha, beta, and GA. That's what we want. But the thing is kind of written with like the arrows, so it looks like you only need graduation criteria if you're going from like alpha to beta, or you're going from like beta to GA. And that's like a little piece of friction that I think that people don't really like. Everybody knows it, but nobody ever fixes it. And I think that would be like really helpful for people, but also just clarify like what's expected. So yeah, those were like the 3 things that I was just thinking about, like going into 2022 as like things that could have a good like impact on like just the ergonomics of doing a KEP and make it just a little bit easier to do a KEP. So I don't know. I'm gonna have to rewrite that because I wrote this in the actual meeting notes and somehow they like disappeared. So.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. I'm happy to collaborate if you want to get a draft going in the channel on Slack and on the process KEP specifically. Yeah.
Cool. And I was just thinking of it like, because I think sometimes it's like we think about all of this is like work being release based, but then you get kind of caught up in the release. And that was why, at least when I was thinking about it, reframing it as like, hey, like what are some things that we could bring into 2022 that would be like kind of wins and also easy to sort of articulate to people. Because you also don't want too much churn in the KEP and the enhancements, like, you know, folder and then the template and things. So I'm also trying to think about like grouping changes together so that we can kind of easily articulate it to the community, as opposed to like little changes all the time that can kind of like people don't necessarily notice or hear about. So
yeah, that was definitely a friction point with the last release, where we would try to tell people like, oh, your KEP doesn't follow the latest template, and you know, we would get the response back like, well, I updated it not that long ago. Like, I'm sorry the template changed, but like, do you really need me to open a PR to add this one little field because there was a template change? And
yeah, that in the last meeting I actually brought up like a staging directory, or like the idea of versioning the templates and then just having like a versioning policy.
yeah,
one of the things that I don't like is that I think that it's going to be stable. And actually, like, since I'm not doing the release team, I'm definitely paying more attention to the template changes. There haven't been any, but I'm paying more attention to it because I don't think that that template should change a lot. And I think that when it does change, that's something that we need to tell people, like, and announce it and kind of collect the little changes and be able to say like, hey, there's a new template. So anything being open, like we know that anything being opened as of this day has these changes. But when it's a bunch of little changes, you can't really keep track of it. And some of those little changes might actually be really important too. Because it's not the size of the change, you know? And I don't think that we have a great way to articulate that. So that was something I brought up in the last meeting as well, like whether, you know, we're formally versioning it or just informally saying like, no, like we're just holding changes for X period of time and merging them, you know, together, like just like lo-fi style. Yeah. So that was my babble, and I'm going to try to memorialize that back into the meeting notes that somebody apparently deleted while I was talking. And Mike is here, so we'll see if Mike has anything to talk about.
No, I'd like to echo that. I got notified that one of my KEPs was really old about a week before it was to be voted on. It's like, oh man, what do I got to do? It wasn't. It took a few hours, but still, it was so many little teeny changes that it just caught me by surprise. Yeah,
I mean, that was what I was thinking when I was talking about it, I think like a month or so ago, was like, what we don't have, because I mean, this is me, like, and I kind of go back to tax forms a little bit, because like you have, like, it's a long form, it's boring, and it's really hard to figure out what is where, especially because the template's not like numbered or anything either, right? So it's not like, hey Mike, you're missing 13A now, or
where's the button that says what you missed? You know, you don't get it until you push it, and then you get this error check. Oh, okay, there we go.
I think that I think
I had to push mine like 5 or 6 times before I got it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you're gonna have to rely probably on the CI, like for the minutia, but I do think it would be nice when I say to somebody, hey Xander, like you're using a KEP from 2020. Can you update to a modern one for Xander to be able to go and be like, well, what are the, like,
why do I need to do this?
Well, not why, but like,
I'm just saying that's what you're feeling when you get told you've got to make.
What are the major changes here? Like, what are the major changes that I need to think about? Because sometimes you have to actually think about some of the changes. It's not just like trivial. And I also think that if we minimize the merges into the KEP, then it's also kind of easier to tell people, hey, the KEP has changed. Like, can you come take a look at the new template? So I think just like tightening that whole process up is going to be, I think, beneficial to people. Because I worked on the release team, and I always felt that tension too of like it was obvious when someone used a really old template, right? Like, your template's mad old, like, okay, fine, like update it. And that's like so obvious. But then there's the line of like, wait, like there are some small changes, but is that enough to ask somebody to update?
I'll tell you,
or how do I tell them?
On literally the oldest issue in Kubernetes I picked up. So it started out as an issue, literally, in KK. And the tracking was all over the place. And I thought that was good enough. And then they said, no, you have to open up an issue in the, in the enhancements thing. So I did that. And then, no, you need it kept. I see, that makes sense. And then 2 years go by, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you have to redo it all again. Wait a minute. It's like, it sort of feels like you're getting dangled around with, with the fishing line.
I think that the other thing that we could improve, and this kind of comes back to one of the things that I thought would be nice to work on, and I don't know if I said it earlier, is that like making the README just a little bit more helpful. So like if the KEP template has changed profoundly, right? Because there was a big change, I would say like a year ago, that could have been like in a red banner in the README. Like, hey, guess what, everyone?
Big change, everybody needs to move now.
Yeah, but that would be like when you go to the directory, that would be like a huge visual cue for you. Even if you're not touching that KEP this release, in your mind now, you're like, hey,
right,
okay, like something changed. And that would be great for an email as well, but emails get lost. And I think having that sort of like sticky reminder or sticky piece of information, hey, now there are PRR reviews that you need, or hey, now you might need whatever it is. And just sort of having something visible every time you go to the repo could be good.
That would be nice. You get the notices, because right now what you get is, it goes idle and nothing happens, and then somebody you finally get agreement for this to be looked at, and then a couple of weeks later you get a notice that says, oh, you've got to redo your format.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
But the problem to me is that like that's something that when you went back to the repo after like a year, you should be able to look, because the repo always looks the same is the problem to me, right? So there's no like what's new, or like even like a what's new, or like a hey, alert, now conformance
these things happen, these are the changes, what you have to do. You have to read the form, you have to read the brand new form to sort of try to figure it out.
Yeah. So I think that could be cool, like what's new section, or like something eye-catching that people who aren't in the repo and aren't really paying attention are like, okay, I haven't, like, what's up now? And you click on it and you're like, oh, okay, this is all the stuff that changed. Like even that, like I think could be. And
who are the players? Who do you need to talk to? That sort of thing. Yes, it would be really nice to have a little community README updates. What's going on? That would be nice. I saw login. That's why I dialed in. I was like, wait a minute, what kind of login? I'm a maintainer on Container D in the OCI stuff. So
nice. I'm at Apple, and we've got a number of folks that work on Container D.
Derek and Michael, of course. Quite a few others. Maxim. Yep.
Well, I've got to run to another meeting. Sorry, folks, but glad to.
No problem.
Chat. And
thanks for listening to my ideas too. Like I came up with some of them recently, and it's just good to have like some immediate sort of like feedback of like, oh wow, like that. I think you're on the right track. Just because there are things that's been bothering me, but I've never really had the time because of like doing other like release stuff to like just go and like actually do it. So since I'm not doing that,
it all seems like stuff that should be achievable by the end of the year. I think definitely that's the right line of thinking.
Yeah, I don't want to take on too much. Like I think sometimes we bite off more than we can chew, and if we've learned anything from the past year and a half, just nibble a little bit.
Was there a 5-second what was the logging command thing? What's going on?
Oh yeah, I can show you real quick actually.
Just a link, I just trying to catch context if this was like Docker login or something else.
So essentially what it is added a login command to kepctl to get around the having to set like an environment variable and like generate a GitHub token and all that. So you just do kepctl login, and it spits out a device code and opens up a GitHub window, and you enter the device code, and then you are auth in kepctl as your GitHub identity, and have all of the same permissions to interface with the enhancements repo that you would on GitHub from the CLI level, which allows us to like, you know, track enhancements and stuff using the CLI and like limits that to the folks that should have that scope.
Fair. Okay. Yeah, I have never used it, so I didn't know what was going on. Okay. Thanks.
I'm just gonna.
I will talk to y'all later.